I had barely set my fork down before Brenda leaned over, eyes glittering like she knew something I didn't. "You sure this doesn't have peanuts?" I asked again, quietly, trying to keep my voice from shaking. I'd already asked once she'd brushed it off then, too. Brenda tilted her head and smiled, slow and mocking.
This is our home.
If it did, we'd find out. Now, wouldn't we?
You must leave by
Eli
the 15th.
chuckled. I looked at him, waiting for him to step in. He didn't. I took a bite. One bite. At first, it was just a strange tingle in the back of my throat. Then came the heat. The swelling. My skin began to prickle. My tongue felt like it was folding in on itself. I reached for my water, knocking over the glass in my panic. My vision blurred. I couldn't speak, couldn't even gasp. I tried to stand, but my knees buckled. The edge of the table caught my hand, but the world was slipping sideways. My throat was closing, and the only sounds in the room were forks clinking and Brenda's laugh. "Oh my God," she said between giggles, "she's really doing it. Look at her." I saw Eli's face for a moment. He didn't look horrified, just annoyed, like I'd embarrassed him. I pointed to my bag. My EpiPen was in there, but no one moved. By the time the paramedics came, I was on the floor. Eli was the one who finally called. Brenda stayed on the porch, still on the phone with someone giggling, like it was all just a weird party trick. Guess she wasn't faking, after all she told whoever was on the other end. Later in the ambulance, I heard Eli's voice behind me. "Cold. You always overreact." The sirens screamed above him, but inside, something had gone quiet in me. Not from the allergy, no, that had been real. But something else had shut off. Something I hadn't even realized I was still trying to protect. And the moment I opened my eyes again, I knew nothing in my life would go back to the way it was before. The ceiling light buzzed faintly overhead when I opened my eyes. The air smelled like antiseptic and something sharp I couldn't name. My throat throbbed with every breath, and I felt the tug of tape and tubing at my arm. The IV line led to a bag above me. A nurse adjusted it without saying much. Just a glance. Just protocol. I turned my head slowly. The chair beside my bed was empty. No flowers, no card, no coat tossed over the armrest. The wall across from me held a whiteboard with a smiley face and the date, but it was the paper taped beside it that held my attention. Discharge upon request. Patient stable. Stable. That word sat bitter on my tongue. Eli didn't come until the next afternoon. He didn't call ahead. Just showed up holding a coffee he didn't offer to me and a set of keys he dropped into his pocket with a clink. He didn't ask how I felt. "They said you can go home today," he said like he was reading a text. I waited for something more, but he just looked at his watch. When I asked him why Brenda had done it, why she thought feeding me peanuts was funny, he didn't even blink. "She didn't mean anything by it," he said. "They were trying to break the tension. You're always so serious." I looked at him. My own son. The boy I had driven to school concerts, waited outside dental appointments for. He wasn't confused or remorseful. He was mildly inconvenienced. "They're making dinner tonight," he added. "Maybe come by, show them there's no hard feelings." There was a long pause between us. The only sound was the machine beeping behind me and the slow drip of fluid into my vein. "No," I said. "I won't be coming." He shrugged. "Suit yourself." He left before the nurse returned with my papers. I signed them with a shaking hand and packed my things in silence. But that night, when I walked into my kitchen, I noticed something was off. The first thing I noticed was the drawer, the one by the stove, second from the top. My EpiPen had lived there for years, easy to reach even with shaking hands. But when I opened it, it was gone. I checked the cabinet next, my shelf. The one labeled with a strip of tape in all caps, "Safe, no nuts." I'd made that system after Brenda moved in after the first mistake. Now it was empty. The containers were there, but the contents were wrong. The lid on the rice jar didn't match. The flour bag had been opened and folded carelessly. On the counter sat a small yellow note in neat, bubbly handwriting. Tidied up a bit. Hope that's okay. B. I stared at it for a long time. When Eli called later that night, I asked him where my EpiPen was. Why are you always accusing people, he said. You're so obsessed with control. It's exhausting. I didn't respond. I just hung up and opened a notebook. I started writing it all down. The day I got home, March 12th. Missing EpiPen pantry. Tampering new oil stain on spatula, faint scent of peanuts. I checked my vitamins. One bottle had been opened and reclosed wrong. I photographed it just in case. Then I went to the bathroom and took the backup EpiPen from my suitcase. I placed it under my pillow like a weapon. The house felt different now. Every sound had sharp edges. Every silence had weight. When I turned off the light, I paused in the doorway. It was the first time I'd ever locked my bedroom door from the inside. Just before sleep came, I heard footsteps in the kitchen. Slow, deliberate. And then a buzz. A phone. A soft laugh. I didn't move. I just reached under my pillow and kept my fingers wrapped around the pen, steady and quiet, as the sound drifted down the hall, and a new kind of certainty settled into my chest. The shower had been running for 3 minutes when I heard the buzz. Brenda's phone was on the dining table, face-up screen still unlocked. I should have looked away. Should have walked past. But something in me had stopped following the rules they never respected. Eli's name lit the screen. She almost passed out. Lull. A second message blinked through right after "Wanna try shrimp" next time I didn't breathe. My finger hovered, then tapped the screen. It opened into a thread labeled Mill Games. The participants were Eli, Brenda, and a contact named Kayla, Brenda's sister. I scrolled slowly, barely blinking. There were screenshots of Google results, mild anaphylaxis symptoms, memes of women choking, one gif of a character dramatically fainting with the caption "Corinne" after one nut. They'd even shared pictures of my face at the hospital. I didn't know who took them. One had a timestamp from the ambulance. Kayla had commented, "She still eats what you cook. Dumb." Brenda had replied with a laughing emoji, "And it's so easy to poke the bear." Further down, I saw Eli's name again. "She acts like she's dying over crumbs." Classic. I stared at that line the longest. Then silently, I picked up my old phone from the kitchen drawer and took photos of every message, every thread, every emoji. I moved slowly, careful not to disturb a single thing. My hands were steady. When I was done, I put her phone back exactly as it was, same angle, same position on the table. The shower was still running. I returned to my room, closed the door. Sat on the edge of my bed with my hands in my lap. They didn't think I'd ever see it. They thought I was weak enough to forget. But I had always remembered everything. And now I had proof. Not just of the past, but of what I needed to do next. I didn't wait another night. The next morning, I booked a rideshare across town and walked into a lawyer's office with my name still on the mailbox. The duplex had never been transferred. Eli had never asked, not formally. He and Brenda had simply moved into the upper unit 5 years ago, like it was theirs by birthright. I let them. I thought it would bring us closer. They never offered rent. I never pushed. Until now. I sat across from a woman named Janice, who wore square glasses and didn't flinch when I laid out what happened. "I just want options," I told her, "and I want it clean." She nodded. "You still own the property outright. You can evict them with proper notice. We can begin the paperwork now or wait. I want to be ready." That afternoon, I withdrew $55,000 from the retirement fund Eli and I had once managed together. Half of it was technically his, though he never contributed a cent. I moved it into a private account I opened that day one with only my name on it. Then I printed everything. The group chat complete with names and timestamps, the hospital admission form, the allergy diagnosis I'd had since I was a teenager, the bank statement showing the withdrawal, the deed my name, my address, my signature. I made clean copies. No notes, no emotion. I didn't staple or highlight or scrawl anything across the top. Just stacked the pages, slid them into a yellow folder, and sealed it shut. No label. It sat quietly on my kitchen table for 2 nights. I didn't touch it again. I didn't reread the messages. On the 3rd day, Brenda invited me to Sunday dinner, said they'd be grilling and keeping it simple. I told her I'd bring dessert. Something light. And the folder. The smell of garlic and something grilled wafted down the hallway as I knocked lightly on their door. Brenda opened it with her usual tight-lipped grin. "No nuts this time," she said, almost singing. "Promise." Eli appeared behind her, holding a bottle of wine. "Let's just have a normal dinner, Mom." I held up the tart. I'd made no lemon, no nuts, just something neutral. "Dessert?" I said, then stepped inside, with the yellow folder tucked neatly under my arm. The table was already set. Brenda's sister Kayla wasn't there this time, but her name came up often, usually through inside jokes that left me out. Dinner passed like nothing had happened. Eli talked about the Steelers. Brenda made comments about local politics. I nodded, ate 2 bites, pushed the rest around. At one point, Brenda laughed and said, "Some people just have such delicate systems. Everything's a crisis. You'd think a peanut could kill them." Eli smirked. "Some people like drama." I looked down at my plate, counted to 5, then pushed my chair back and stood. From the counter, I picked up the yellow folder and placed it in the center of the table. Calm, careful. Brenda raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" "No yelling," I said. "Just read." She opened it first. Eli leaned in beside her. The pages turned slower than I expected. No one spoke for a long time. The messages, the screenshots, the photos, the hospital record, the deed. Brenda's face drained of color. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Eli blinked hard. "You went through her phone?" I didn't answer that. I didn't need to. Brenda slapped the folder shut. You're blowing it way out of no," I said gently. "I'm not." They looked at each other, then at me. The silence was full dense. I let it sit between us. I stood, picked up my untouched dessert, and carried it to the counter. "By the way," I said, not turning around, "you'll need to be out of the upstairs unit by the 15th. Brenda didn't speak at first. Her fingers hovered over the edge of the folder, pressing so hard her knuckles blanched. Then slowly color bloomed in her cheeks before draining just as quickly. Eli flipped to the hospital bill. His hand trembled. He didn't look at me, just stared at the total like it might rewrite the truth if he squinted hard enough. I had marked one page with a sticky tab. Brenda's sister's message. "She still eats what you cook. Dumb." Underneath the screenshot of Brenda's reply, "It's so easy to poke the bear." Brenda's voice cracked. "Are you serious right now?" I said nothing. Eli finally looked up. "You're blowing this up over a joke." Still nothing. I didn't owe them more. I pointed to the deed copy. "You'll need to be out by the 15th. That's when Brenda lost whatever calm she'd been clinging to. "This is our home," she snapped, standing. "You can't just kick us out like we're strangers." "It was never yours," I said. "Not legally, not morally." Eli stepped forward, more pleading than angry now. "Mom, come on. Don't do this. We didn't mean for it to go that far. It was just a A-game I finished for him. You named it." He stopped mid-step. Brenda started to pace, muttering, eyes darting between Eli and the folder, like she was searching for some line of defense that didn't exist. I stood up and walked to the counter. Picked up the tart. Still untouched. Brenda said something else, her voice sharp and desperate, but I didn't listen. I had heard enough. At the door, I paused. The lawyer's already drawn up the notice. Expect it tomorrow. Then I stepped out, leaving the folder on the table open to the page, with Brenda's laughing face captured in a group chat about my near death. I closed the door behind me. The air outside felt still, but I noticed how quiet the world seemed now, how unfamiliar peace could be. I took the stairs slowly, one hand around the box of tart, the other finally free. They didn't believe I meant it, not when I handed them the letter, not when I said the 15th, not when I closed the folder and walked out. But they started believing. The morning the locksmith pulled into the driveway. The porch light was still on from the night before. By noon, the top unit's lock had been changed, and 2 cardboard boxes sat beside the door, taped and labeled in my handwriting. Kitchen, clothes, miscellaneous. I didn't need to be there when they came back. My lawyer had already filed the eviction notice. Legally, formally, clean, no fights, no scenes, just documentation. I kept the main unit, the one I'd lived in for 12 years. Rented out the upper to a traveling nurse who liked quiet and paid on time. She didn't ask about the dents in the baseboard upstairs or the nail polish spill on the guest bathroom tile. I changed my number that same week. Canceled the shared family plan. Blocked their emails. I didn't want explanations. I didn't want apologies that only came from losing access. The house felt different now. The silence no longer strained. It settled. It breathed. I donated the old dishes, the ones Brenda insisted we use for every family meal. I bought a smaller set ceramic soft gray plane. My salt stayed in its own container now. My fridge stayed labeled. And no one touched anything without asking. There was something sacred about that. About the fact that everything in my space now had purpose, had intention. Nothing was borrowed, nothing was owed. Even the air seemed to shift. My bedroom, once a locked bunker, became a place I could rest again. I opened the windows, washed the sheets, rearranged the books by subject instead of guilt. It didn't feel like power. It felt like relief. That night I cooked pasta just for myself. I ate with the window open, feet tucked under me, and the phone blissfully silent. And for the first time in years, I didn't glance over my shoulder to check the kitchen drawer. It was the woman across the street, Miriam, who told me. She saw Eli and Brenda carrying boxes into a small duplex across town, one owned by Brenda's cousin. No driveway, no central air. Window unit stuck halfway in. They looked miserable, Miriam said, sipping her tea with too much sympathy. But maybe that's what it takes. I just nodded. There wasn't much left to say. A week later, Brenda posted one of those vague, bitter rants on Facebook. I saw it only because someone from church forwarded it. Some people think control is love. Some mothers only know how to manipulate. Hope you enjoy your empty kitchen. The comments were predictable. A few friends clicked like. One aunt chimed in with a heart emoji. No one tagged me. I didn't reply. I didn't log in again for weeks. Instead, I baked. Simple things at first, scones, a crusty loaf cornbread with herbs. I used ingredients I picked, measured with no one looking over my shoulder. Everything labeled, everything safe. I joined a book club at the library. We read novels about women who outlived bad marriages and terrible expectations. I brought banana bread to our second meeting. Someone asked for the recipe. I started walking again just before dusk. The world looked softer in that light. Less sharp, less urgent. Sometimes I'd pass families at dinner tables seen through lit windows, the clatter of forks, the lean-in conversations. I never felt envy, only a kind of gentle ache for what I used to think I had. One night, I passed by a house where someone was burning something on the grill. The scent of charred sauce and something too sweet in the air. It reminded me of one of Brenda's early dinners before the contempt became obvious, when she still pretended to want peace. Before the tests. Before the games. I walked a little farther that night, let the air clear behind me. At home, I washed my hands, lit a candle, pulled a tart from the oven, one I made just because I wanted it. And when I sat down to eat, the chair across from me stayed empty on purpose. Some evenings I sit by the window with a cup of tea, just watching the trees shift in the wind. I'm not waiting for anything, not longing, just still. It's quiet in the way I used to think was lonely, but now it feels like truth. I don't talk about what happened. Not much. People wouldn't believe it if I did. Or they'd try to explain it away with words like miscommunication or misunderstanding. But once at the co-op, a younger woman struck up a conversation while we waited in line. She said she was moving in with her fiancé's parents. Just until we save for a house, she said, her voice light but unsure. I smiled, told her to label her pantry shelf, to keep her own account, to trust her gut. She looked confused, so I said it softly. They say food is love, but it's also power. Be careful who cooks for you and who stays silent when you choke. Her eyes widened a little, but she didn't ask questions. Just nodded and tucked the tip away like a recipe she wasn't sure she'd ever use. I haven't repeated the story since. What happened in that kitchen, in that hospital, in the moments where my son looked through me, it stripped something bare. Not just trust, not just love. It showed me what they saw when they looked at me: an obligation, a burden, a prop. But I'm none of those things. I'm a woman who knows the difference between a joke and a warning, between a dinner and a trap. And though I didn't shout or slam doors or get revenge with screaming, I did the one thing that truly mattered. I left the table. Now every meal is mine, every breath free from hidden risks, every day absent of people who mistake cruelty for cleverness. Sometimes all it takes is one bite to learn everything you need to know. And when I set down my cup and stand from the window, I do so knowing I finally see them clearly, and they'll never be close enough to serve me again.